Welcome to the Godly Business Podcast, where we discuss sales fundamentals with godly principles. I'm your host, Anne Jean Pierre. Today's episode is brought to you by Better Sales Women, where entrepreneurs learn to master the sales conversation and 3x their income. To learn more, visit bettersaleswomen.com. Welcome to today's podcast. So, in today's episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about how to close three things that you need to keep in mind when you are trying to close the sale. So, last week we talked a lot about overcoming objections, which is something that a lot of people worry about when it comes to sales. We talked a little bit about some of the things that you can do to try to mitigate or avoid some of those objections that can come up in the first place. So, if you have not listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you go back and listen to that one. So, today I wanted to talk about how to navigate your sales conversation and how to really close. So, three things that you have to think about. So, we're going to jump right into it. The first thing that I think you should really consider when doing your sales presentation is well, not doing your sales presentation, but any sales conversation before you even start doing that is to have a system in place. And I feel like when it comes to sales, this is one of those things that is, I find that most people put in the back burner, right? They have a lot of other system in place, their administration systems, the marketing systems and all of those things. But when it comes to sales, it's a last resort type thing, or either people don't know how to set up a structure or um, they don't think they need one, right? But of course, I'm biased in saying this because I am a sales coach. But I feel like if you have everything that you need to have, but you can't sell, then what you have is either a charity or, a hobby. So unless you are selling, right? Unless you are closing, then you're not really in business. And to me, the backbone of your business is to sell, right? Is to make money. So why put that as a last resort? Why not put as much energy into coming up with the sales structure or sales system that can work for you? How you build your system, honestly, we can have a different conversation about that a different time. But my biggest thing is to have one, right? Even if it's one that doesn't quite work as well as you would want it to, but starting one can be very, very simple. And having one can really help you to at least have an idea of like, okay, these are the things that I need to take into consideration. So what should you include when I say have a sales system? You could start as simple as having a sales goal, right? It doesn't have to be very, very complicated to where you have to write a script. That's not what I'm talking about. When I sell a sales system, you already have the leads, right? You have your marketing, which is going to bring you the leads that you want. And assuming that your marketing does a great job of filtering those perfect clients for you, right? Your ideal client is what your marketing should be targeting to get to you. And let's say through your funnel, you already have those perfect clients. Now it's time to make that call. Before you make that call, you should have an idea of what it is that client should really want, which of course part of the marketing process is that. But when you make the call, what are the questions that you will ask? I highly recommend having the same questions that you ask all your clients. You could rephrase the questions depending, the client that you're talking to and the style and flow and whatever. but you should have the exact same questions. And I highly recommend having those questions, at least having those questions, and try them for at least 90 days, and to see which one people respond to more, which one you get more feedback to, and things like that. And then use that. Having that said, right? So to make it simple, as simple as possible, to start, if you do not have a sales system, a flow, or anything, start with that. One, having a sales goal is your first one. And two, having sets of questions that you will ask each and every prospect that you either over the phone with, or Zoom call, whatever. So this is the first thing, is having a simple sales system. And the reason why you want to have a system is because if you're doing things randomly, you will not know what's working, what's not working. So therefore, it's imperative that you have something going that can kind of help keep you on track, that you can measure, and that you can tweak when you need to. So I highly recommend doing that, starting there, having a sales goal and having specific questions that you will ask your client. So now that we have at least that set up, the other thing that I want to talk about is in talking to your client. Now, we always hear, or at least you may have heard, that when you're doing your sales presentation, you need to do let the client speaks more, right? They do 80% of the talking, you only do 20% of the talking, which also means you're doing 80% of listening, but that's not true. You're always 100% listening. I know the math ain't mathing, but keep up with me here. You want to be 100% attuned to what the person is saying when they're talking, right? So now you're having the sales conversation. You will know we're going to ask specific questions for the customer as they're, to get to know them, and ask those calibrated questions to move them into the conversation to sell, to close, right? So in your 20% talking, we just talked about what you need to do in your 20% talking. Half of that is asking questions, not just doing your sales presentation and talking about your product and service and how great they are compared to the competitor and blah, blah, blah. That is not it. Half of you talking will be asking questions, that which hence is why I said, as your system, those two most important things that you will lay out is your sales goals and then asking questions. Those two basic things need to be in your sales system that you're going to develop, right? And then asking questions. Why is that important? Asking those questions, we touched on it a little bit last week, will definitely help you to overcome objections, because you're asking the questions and you asking open-ended questions, you're asking very specific questions. Those questions, the purpose of them is to get to know the customer very well, understand very well what their pinpoints are, to figure out exactly what they're looking for. Because remember, a lot of time, the person doesn't have the language to explain to you what they need, right? They just know they have a problem and they're trying to find a solution for it. And sometimes they don't have the language to really tell you what the true solution is. And so, therefore, it's your job, by asking those very specific questions, those calibrated questions, to get to the root of what the solution can be for them, and how you can then present your solution to them in a way that makes sense to them, right? So that's very, very important. So we're going to do that. We're going to ask very calibrated questions. In the time that we're talking, half the time is asking questions. So that's how you get to move to close, right? Now, let's talk about your presentation quickly. When you are doing your presentation. So let's say you did all those stuff, and you find a solution for them. I always say to give your prospect options. Now, we've talked about, like, having packages and things like that, depending on the service that you are in, the industry that you're in, right? To have that 3 packages. Now, when I say 3 packages, I'm not saying you should have at least 3 packages. No, no, no. I'm saying you should have no more than 3 options, period. You will not have 4. You will not have 5. You will not have 6. You will have 3 options. Why? Because people start to get overwhelmed with anxiety and picking an option, right? So even if you have, let's say, 10 potential options, what you will present is no more than 3. And the reason why that's important, we kind of touched on it before, is you want to give them 3 options so they can easily make a decision. So they're not going back and forth. So you can keep them focused. Keep them focused and on task. 3 options. Of those 3 options, maximum, and sometimes it doesn't have to be 3 options. It could be just 2 options, right? But the point is no more than 3 options when you are making your sales offer. No more than 3 options. And the reason being is you will have, like I said, people that will always go with the cheapest option, period. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter how great whatever you're saying is, they want the cheapest option, right? So you have that um, customer mindset. And then you have the customer mindset that they are about luxury. So whatever the highest package option is what they will choose. That's it. They will always go for the best of the best, and they'll go for the highest option. However, in my experience, most people choose the middle option. Most people will choose the middle option when you give them 3 options. So that's why I would highly recommend having no more than 3 offers when you are, getting down to making your offer after your presentation to the prospect. No more than 3. So now you made your options. What's next? So one of the things that I find people do often is they talk around and around and around and never actually ask for the close, right? So let's say they would do like the presentation, they go through their spiel and they say, these are the options that we have available, right? Saying these are the options that you have available is not asking for the sale. You actually have to ask for the sale. And this is where I feel like most people get um fumble the ball because they don't know how to ask the person to go for it, right? To just whatever. And it's as simple, it can be so simple. It's ridiculous. So, how do you ask for the sale? It can be as simple as this, you guys. Which one do you like? Which one are you getting? Which one did you want to go with today? You see that? It's that simple. You made your presentation. These are the 3 options. Which one do you want to go with today? So you are already assuming that there's no, there's no um anything, that the person's already making a decision, right? So you just need to know which decision they made. So you can, package it, send the email, send the contract, whatever. That's called assumptive close, right? So I'm just asking you, okay, so do you want the red one or the black one? Right? Assuming you're selling a whatever. Or did you want to go with package A or B? That's it. Like assumptive close. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as you think it should be once you go through your system. And this is something that I I truly believe, if we look at it from if we look at sales from having a simple conversation, it will remove a lot of the fluff and anxiousness and all of these extra things that we think sell is, because it's not that complicated. And it's, yes, it's coming. You could look at it, Annie, you saying it's not complicated because you're a salesperson. Like, that's why you think it's not complicated. And if you have never sold before, you may feel like it's a mountain. It's just something that's super scary. But like I always say, you are already a salesperson, because most of the time, without realizing it, you are selling to people. You are selling to people the option to accept, you know, your job interview. If you have a W-2 job, you sold somebody on hiring you, right? So we are all salespeople. It is just a conversation. So I hope you understood what I was going through to today, and how to close the sales, and the three things that I think I went over four, but the things that you need to consider when making your sales, right? So, first is to have a system in place, and the system needs to be systematic, right? It can't be random. Today you do this, the next day you do XYZ. It has to be a flow, it has to be consistent, right? And it can be as simple when you're starting, if you don't know where to start, of having a goal and specific questions to ask. That's it. The other thing is, talk less, listen more. And when you're talking, half of what you're talking about is really asking questions, asking lots and lots and lots of questions. Those questions will help you not only overcome objections, but also understand what your customers' true pinpoints are, to find out how to properly present your solution to them, to that specific customer. Why? Because your solution could work for 1,000 people, but the reason that they're buying is completely different from one another. So when you're doing your presentation, you are presenting to that specific customer, and you need to know what that customer issue is. So therefore, you're going to ask questions, a lot of questions. You're also going to ask the same questions for 90 days as part of your system, to see what works, what's not working, and revamp, right? So there's that. And then you're going to ask for the sale. You're going to ask for the sale. It's not complicated. Do not just assume because you made your presentation and you give three options that that's asking for the sale. That's not asking for the sale. You actually have to ask them to close. And then finally, closing doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just doing a subjective close and just say, okay, which one do we want to go with today? And emphasis on today, right? Not tomorrow, not which one you're thinking about. Nope, which one we're going with today, right? So making those tweaks to your cells is how you can get closer to closing your clients. So apply them today, um, practice them, write up your questions. I recommend you write up at least 10 questions at minimum, 10 questions that you will ask your client, and then rephrase those 10 questions in about three different ways. Same questions, but three different ways. So technically, you have 30 questions, but really it's 10 questions, just rephrased in three different ways. So hopefully this was helpful, you guys. This one was a short one, so I hope you enjoy it. And of course, if you have questions, concern, want to learn more, give me a shout. And then, as always, put God first. Ask Him for Him to teach you, counsel you, and guide you in the way that you should go. He will give you the answer. So I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. God bless, and we'll talk next week.